I am sorry, but can we talk about this? Because I absolutely did not have Sonny and Justine turning into one of the messiest, most dangerously entertaining pairings on my General Hospital bingo card, and yet here we are. And honestly, I kind of love it. I kind of hate it. I definitely do not trust it. Which, to be fair, is exactly why it works. This is the kind of storyline that makes me sit up at night after an episode and start mentally pacing around my room like I'm the one about to. Blow up my whole life over one bad decision and one very attractive mob boss with a talent for making disaster look romantic. Because let's be real, that is Sonny's brand. It always has been. He gives you intensity, danger, false comfort, the illusion of being understood, and then before you know it, your whole moral compass is in the trash, and you're telling yourself, it was just one night, it meant nothing. Everyone should calm down. Sure. Of course. That always goes well in Port Charles, doesn't it? And Justine, oh, she is in deep, and she doesn't even want to admit it to herself yet. That's the part that has me yelling at the screen. Not because she slept with Sonny. Honestly, this is Port Charles. People sleep with the wrong person before lunch and then spend 6 months acting shocked that feelings happened. No, what gets me is the way she's already doing those little mental backflips, trying to shrink the whole thing down into something neat and manageable. Like she just needed to get it out of her system. Like she scratched the itch, checked the box, and now she can go back to her professional life with no emotional debris left behind. Girl, be serious? This is Sonny Corinthus. Nobody just gets it out of their system with Sonny. That is not how this man works. He gets under people's skin. He gets into their habits, their blind spots, their weaknesses, their fantasies. He becomes the exception they start making excuses for, and by the time they realize it, the exception has become the whole rule. And Sonny knows it. You just know he knows it. That's what makes this even better. He doesn't need to chase her hard now because he's probably sitting there completely convinced she'll circle back on her own. And the worst part, he's probably right. That smug, patient, dangerous confidence Sonny gets when he knows someone is more hooked than they want to admit. I have seen that look too many times over the years. I've been watching the show long enough to know Sonny doesn't always need to pursue. Sometimes he just waits. And when Sonny waits, it's almost worse because he leaves the other person alone with their thoughts, their curiosity, their denial. And that little memory they keep replaying when they're supposed to be doing literally anything else. I know some fans are probably rolling their eyes and saying, oh great, another Sonny romance. Another woman with authority throwing common sense out the window because he smirked in her direction. And listen, I get it. I really do. There have been times this show leaned way too hard on Sonny's magnetism, like it was some kind of universal law. And sometimes it absolutely felt repetitive. But I'm sorry, this one has a different flavor. Maybe it's because Justine is supposed to know better. Maybe it's because the public optics are so bad. Maybe it's because the storyline is practically humming with future fallout before the fallout has even happened. That's the part I enjoy. Not just the chemistry, but the risk. The sense that this wasn't some random hookup tossed in for shock value, but a choice that could detonate careers, alliances, reputations, and maybe even personal loyalties if the wrong person finds out at the wrong moment. Because can we please talk about the earring thing? That is exactly the kind of detail General Hospital loves to use when they want us to know a secret isn't staying secret for long. And I am here for that kind of foreshadowing when it's done right. A forgotten earring, a trace of perfume, a camera catching someone entering the wrong door, a witness who wasn't supposed to be there. Christina showing up at the worst possible moment, one tiny overlooked thing that turns a private decision into a public crisis. That is soap storytelling 101. And when GH remembers how to do classic soap mechanics with just enough modern tension, it really sings. This is what the show should be doing more often. Not just telling us people are in danger, or conflicted, or tempted, but planting a landmine in the room and daring us to guess who steps on it first. And don't even get me started on the career implications because that is where this gets deliciously ugly. A district attorney tangled up with Sonny Corinthos? Are you kidding me? That's not just messy. That's radioactive. It's the kind of scandal that could destroy credibility overnight. It's the kind of story that opponents, enemies, rivals, and sanctimonious hypocrites would feast on. And Sonny, for all his charm and soft-voiced understanding, and I get you, routine is still Sonny. The man is a scandal magnet. He's practically a walking ethics violation for anyone in public office. So the idea that Justine thinks she can dip her toe into this, have one night, and then neatly step back onto dry land without consequences, absolutely not. That is not how this town works. That is not how this genre works. And honestly, it is not how desire works either, especially not the kind built on tension and restraint and mutual fascination. Once people cross that line, they don't go back to being casual acquaintances. They just don't. And yes, I know Sonny has had a million romantic entanglements. I know. Believe me, I know. I've watched this man cycle through love, obsession, grief, loyalty, guilt, and self-destruction enough times to write a thesis on it. But part of what makes this interesting is exactly what the spoiler points out. He has been single for a surprisingly long time. At least by Sonny standards. That matters. It changes the energy. Sonny Unpaired always feels temporary, like the show is holding its breath, waiting to decide which direction his emotional life is going to go next. Historically, he does not stay unattached for long. So of course, fans have been waiting for the next person to really click with him. And I don't think many people expected it to be Justine in this specific way. That surprise helps. It gives the story an unpredictability that Sonny romances sometimes lose when the pairing feels too obvious from day one. But let me be messy for a second and say the quiet part out loud part of why this works is that Sonny with someone who shouldn't want him is always more compelling than Sonny with someone who's openly all in from the start. There, I said it. I'm not even taking it back. The tension is better. The denial is better. The power imbalance gets more complicated. The emotional logic gets more twisted. And Sonny as a character is often best when he's operating in that gray area where comfort and danger blur together. That's when Maurice Benard, or really the whole framing around Sonny, gets to play the stuff that makes the character linger in people's minds. Not the easy romance. The dangerous, maybe? Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Because before we run all the way into epic romance territory, let's acknowledge something. This could also implode almost immediately. And that would be very GH2. Justine might panic. Sonny might act too casual and annoy her. Someone could spot them. A professional enemy could start digging. Christina could stumble into something awkward. Or the show could decide the real purpose of this hookup isn't romance at all, but collateral damage. And honestly, I would not hate that either. Because not every pairing needs to become soulmates. Sometimes the best soap pairings are the ones that unleash chaos, reveal character flaws, and force everyone around them to react. Sometimes it's less about true love and more about who gets exposed when the secret comes out. That can be even more fun. Now, the pregnancy theory. Oh boy. Here we go. I can already hear half the fandom groaning and the other half rubbing their hands together like cartoon villains. And I get both reactions. On one hand, a surprise pregnancy can be the laziest move in the soap toolkit when it's used like a shortcut instead of a story. We have all seen it happen. The chemistry is there, the stakes are there, the writers panic and go, you know what this needs? A baby? And suddenly a potentially sharp adult, ethically complicated storyline turns into paternity speculation nursery drama and endless reaction shots. That is the risk. That is why some fans are probably saying, please, for the love of all that is holy, do not do this. But, if you're asking me whether I think GH is above giving Sonny a late-in-life baby scandal with the district attorney after one supposedly clean, uncomplicated night, absolutely not. This show would do that with a straight face and then act like we're the crazy ones for being shocked. And honestly, part of me would be fascinated. Not because I think it's realistic in a grounded drama sense, but because it would be the most General Hospital thing imaginable. It would take a storyline that is already a professional nightmare and turn it into a full-blown social explosion. Sonny having another child at this point in his life with someone whose entire public identity could be compromised by the association. It's ridiculous. It's excessive. It is also annoyingly kind of compelling. Because imagine the fallout. Not just the usual what will people say nonsense, but the actual emotional complications. Justine trying to maintain control while her body betrays the lie she's telling herself. Sonny being Sonny, maybe genuinely invested, maybe weirdly calm, maybe more affected than he wants to admit. The people around them realizing this wasn't some one-night lapse in judgment, but a life-changing mistake that can't be buried. That is the kind of story that forces characters into corners. And when GH is good, it thrives on corners. It thrives when nobody has an easy exit, when every choice makes something worse. When pride and longing and fear all start pulling in different directions. Also, can I just say, I'm a little tired of pretending Sonny isn't still one of the most narratively useful chaos engines this show has. I know some viewers are over him. I know some think the show centers him too much. Fair? Valid even. There have absolutely been stretches where it felt like the entire canvas bent around Sonny at the expense of other characters who deserved more depth, more consequence, more independent momentum. I am not blind to that. But even when I'm annoyed with him, I can't deny that when the show puts him in the middle of a morally messy, emotionally charged setup like this, things start moving. The conversations get sharper. The stakes feel less abstract. The reactions matter. Sonny as a character can be exhausting, yes, but he can also be electric when the writing remembers that his biggest narrative value is not just being powerful, but being disruptive. And that's really what this storyline could be if GH commits disruption. To Justine's self-image, to Sonny's routine, to the town's perception, to the legal and personal lines that everybody pretends still exist in Port Charles. I don't want this to become some soft-focus romance where everyone eventually shrugs and moves on. No. Make it ugly. Make it awkward. Make Justine spiral. Make Sonny wait her out with that maddening confidence. Make the secret harder to contain by the day. Give me guilt. Give me temptation. Give me someone finding the earring. Give me somebody noticing she came out of that building at the wrong hour. Give me a courtroom scene where professional composure is hanging by a thread because one private choice has started bleeding into every public moment.